Hi guys, I've started this channel because I'm really stoked about entrepreneurship. I love founder stories and the very beginnings of companies, constantly telling people in my lives all these different stories. And I thought it was time to start sharing these stories on YouTube versus talking everyone in my lives ear off about entrepreneurship all the time. To me, they're like adult fairy tales. Each one of them, like it gets me that excited. So I thought I'd start out with a bang. Something that we all know about, Instagram, and the story of Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger. This story starts in 2009, and basically Kevin Systrom is living in San Francisco. He's 27 at the time, working for a travel startup and teaching himself to code on weekends. He's kind of obsessed with creating apps, and he creates this app called Bourbon, named after his love of whiskey. And basically, the concept of this app was a check-in app. Think like Foursquare. You go to a place, you can check in, you can save locations, show your friends, but most importantly, you can post visual statuses. So you have to post a photo and then some words underneath it, kind of, you know, what you would think of in the modern day as Instagram. See, he had this belief that the future was visual. So he gets, you know, like 80, 90 people on this app and he thinks there's some potential. So he goes to this party one night for another startup in San Francisco, and Kevin realizes that there are some tech investors at this party. So he decides to take out his app and just show it to one of the investors. When he does that, the investor's like, this looks like it has some potential. Let's grab coffee next week. And Kevin is really stoked. Kevin meets this investor the next week for coffee, and he shows him the app, and on this day, at this very moment, he's so lucky. Why? Because quite a few people are downloading the app and signing up. Now, it's been having some slow growth. So the fact that in this moment when he's having this meeting, a lot of people are signing up for the app is pretty much fate. Investor is kind of doubtful in the meeting. He's like, you definitely just had a bunch of people sign up while I was here to make me think that there's loads of potential with this app. But he says, absolutely, that's not true. It was just divine timing. After, you know, like an hour of coffee and talking through the app, this investor is like, I really think this has potential and I believe in you. And I will give you $50,000 if you find a co-founder who will help you create this. So Mike is 25, living in San Francisco as well, kind of doing the same thing, working a job, teaching himself to code on the side, really has the kind of entrepreneurial spirit, but is 25 and doesn't really know what that looks like. And Kevin knew Mike from Stanford, so he decided to approach him about the co-founder position. It didn't take much convincing, and Mike decided to come on board as the co-founder. Okay, I'm just gonna say it right off the bat, the speed in this story is insane. So after this guy comes on for $50,000, two other investors try and get on it really quickly because no one wants to miss the next Facebook or Instagram. Within 2 weeks, they get $500,000, $500,000 to make Bourbon something big. So thank God he went to that party, right? However, they also quickly kind of realized that Bourbon had hit its capacity. What do I mean is that it wasn't growing super quickly. The space for check-in apps was quite loud, and you know, Foursquare was kind of the top dog in this. And so they decided to iterate and create a new concept. One thing that they recommend in how I built this, which is where part of this information is from, they say you should never look at why people aren't using your app or why they're leaving. You should be looking at why the people who are staying. And that's where you get a lot of valuable information in user experience. Talk to these 100 people and they say, what do you really like about Bourbon and why are you staying around? And all of these people said a resounding answer. They loved the visual statuses. They all thought it was such a cool concept. Because around this time, there wasn't really a good way to share photos. Also around this time, smartphones were becoming extremely popular. Everyone now had a camera that was pretty good and accessible in their pocket at all times. Knowing that a lot of people now have cameras on them at all times, and knowing that people loved those visual statuses, they were like, well, let's just run with that. Another really interesting point to make around this is that they were considering for a while, do we do friends and adding friends, or do we have people just following people? And I think this is really integral to their growth, their fast growth, is that they decided to do followers versus friends. Friends, while it keeps things more intimate, it often keeps it a bit more closed. Whereas followers opens it up. It makes it a much more open community versus closed. Again, there's pros and cons to both, but this was also kind of one of the first social media platforms of its time doing followers. So that is when Instagram was birthed. And the name Instagram comes from instant photos and Telegram. They put those together, made Instagram. They come up with this concept, and Mike starts prototyping the app. During this time, Kevin goes on a quick vacation with his girlfriend. And they're walking along the beach and talking, and he's telling his girlfriend about this new concept. And she's like, that's really incredible. I think it's amazing. I personally probably won't be posting a lot of photos, but I can see how other people would. And he was like, wait, why wouldn't you be posting a lot of photos? And she was like, well, I'm just not really good at taking photos. I mean, none of my photos turn out well. I mean, you know, think about it. Your friend, Greg, he always posts really amazing photos. And that's just not me. And he thought about it. And he was like, well, what does Greg do to get such good photos? Oh, he just uses filters. He just filters his photos and it makes them look way better. And she was like, okay, well, maybe you should have filters on the app. And that was another integral part to what made Instagram. They decided to launch with filters that you could use on your photos. And on the same vacation, Kevin made the very first Instagram filters just using some simple software online. The first photo on Instagram ever was a photo Kevin posted just of his girlfriend's foot and a dog on a beach. First photo on Instagram.
Okay, so here's the photo that we're talking about, but when I looked at his Instagram to grab the photo, it looked like there were two before that. So this is an urban legend. This is one even he tells, but it is not true. There are two photos before this.
Instagram in these days had a very beautiful kind of concept behind it. I'm talking before influencers, before censorship, before brand deals. It had a very simple motto. They wanted to allow people to share something they loved with others and feel really great doing it. They wanted to add an element of simplicity to social media, just very straight to the point, you know, photo, words. They kind of were the Apple of social media at the time. Yo, I know I said this before, but the speed of this story is crazy. So just bear with me because this is not normal. Within 8 weeks, they build the prototype of Instagram. 8 weeks! The basis of their launch strategy was quite simple. They were allowed 100 people to be invited to use the app before it officially went live on the Apple App Store. Thought long and hard about who they would give these 100 invites to, and they decided to launch it to some journalists, of course, and then they really focused on some top designers, like visual designers, and then some top photographers. They wanted that to be the catalyst to move this forward as a photo sharing platform versus completely social. And again, this is not normal. They launched Instagram October 10th, 2010 at midnight. And I'm gonna read you some of these numbers. This is how it went. They got 25,000 users in 24 hours. They got 100,000 users in the first week. Yo, they got 1 million users in 1 month. And within their first year, they had 10 million users. This is not normal. So during this first launch day, going back, they're perplexed. They look at the analytics and see most of the signups were international. This wasn't just happening in America. This wasn't just happening in Silicon Valley. It was international from day one. And they realized immediately that this was a much bigger thing right off the bat than they had even hoped. And one funny story is, as many horror launch stories go, they had so many people sign up within the first week that it actually crashed for a little bit because they were running all of this off of one computer because, you know, they thought it would be like a slow build. They obviously correct that problem and keep working on it and iterating it and growing it for this whole next year. And after just 1 year, they raised another round of money. Remember, that first round was $500,000. Easy. In just 1 year, they raised $7 million for their Series A round. This gives them a valuation of $25 million in 1 year. Okay, fun fact also, they said that the first celebrity that they know of that downloaded Instagram was Snoop Dogg. It's pretty cool. And it makes sense. At 1 year in, they have so many people at this time wanting to invest in them that they're literally having people showing up to the office, knocking on their door, asking to take them out to lunch and pitch them on being able to invest in them. They had to start fending people off, people with a lot of money. They also mentioned around this time that there is a fair amount of competitors coming up. There's all these people raising loads of money before they even launch. And Mike and Kevin, every time this happens, they're kind of like, oh shit, like, is someone else gonna come around and beat us? Like, is this it? Really nervous about the growth of Instagram and, you know, not knowing if someone's gonna come in and overtake them. But the funny thing is about raising a lot of money before you launch, it doesn't guarantee success. And those people kept coming up and kind of fading away while Instagram just kept succeeding. Now, just 1 year after they bring in the 7 million, they bring in 50 million with their next round. This gives them a valuation 2 years in of $500 million. It was just after this that Facebook approached them and acquired them for $1 billion in a combination of stocks and cash. Now, fun fact, Jack Dorsey of Twitter actually approached them previous to this to acquire them for $500 million. But that was all in stocks and they ended up saying no. And while they both stuck around Instagram until 2018, having sold it back in 2012, just 2 years after its launch date, they made themselves insanely wealthy so fast. Speed, I'm telling you, this whole story is just, it moves so fast, and I need to repeat that this is not normal. This is not normal. One of my best friends right now is launching a messaging app, which falls kind of within the social media world. And, you know, usually they're picking up users slowly. They're getting networks created. It's not that there's this much inbound normally. So why did Instagram make it and other people didn't? And why did they make it to the scale that they did so quickly? Here are a few reasons, and I've mentioned most of these in this video. 1, timing. The timing with smartphones and people just starting to be able to carry them everywhere and take instant photos and upload them to an app. 2, constant iteration from consumer insights. Instagram has changed itself and had so many facelifts. I mean, think about it. Instagram stories, them adding videos, reels, lives, messaging, all of that just came with different updates of the app, and we kind of forget how many steps it took to get here at this point. Another thing was that open model versus closed, followers versus friends. Lastly, simplicity. They made it so easy to post high quality photos to the masses in just a few clicks, and just made it all very intuitive. The end! Thank you so much for watching my first video. I'm gonna be launching one of these each week, and I really hope you stick around because I'm super excited about this. And yeah,